Buon pomeriggio, dico buon pomeriggio a tutti.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to everyone who is following this afternoon session. We are live on television. I would now like to welcome everyone here in this room.
The opening session of the UN Food Systems Summit. Obviously, this is the official opening, but many talks are taking place, and you know what? It's not just talks. These are very important days because, as the Secretary General will tell us later, this is a call to action. It's not just an occasion of meeting and talking, but it's a call to action. You know that in this very moment, the 42% of humanity lacks of healthy diets and faces desperately need for nourishment. This is an emergency, obviously, but it's not just about emergencies. This emergency is connected also to climate change, but also the fact that we can say that something is happening. 2 years ago in this very room, we were discussing these topics, and most of the people in the room did so many things in these 2 years to make things change. This is what we will try to understand this afternoon, but please, first of all, let me just welcome the remarks of our host country, Italy, and let me call here the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Italy, Antonio Tajani. The floor is yours.
Welcome, bienvenue, bienvenidos, benvenuti a Roma, la capitale.
Welcome to Rome, the capital of Italy. We are extremely pleased to be hosting this extraordinary event, which the Italian government, headed by Giorgia Meloni, and FAO have co-organized. I would like to thank everyone from the Foreign Ministry and FAO alike. We feel it is fundamental that we commit to addressing an issue which affects the lives of millions of people. Food security is a priority for Italy's government. That is why we feel UN efforts everywhere in the world need to be supported at a very tricky time where the risk is that millions of people will fail to receive grain from Ukraine. We hope that an agreement will be reached so that this problem can be overcome and so that those who are not involved in an unfair war will have their needs met. We believe in the fight against climate change, scientific research, and space can be decisive actions in making the lives of millions of people better. Having food and nutritious food is a right for all. Too many children still die of hunger. It's incredible. And the wealthiest countries have a duty to reach out to those in need, and Italy is at the forefront of such efforts. We wish to play a key role in such efforts and take active part in the work that is going to happen in the coming days. We would like to thank the Secretary General for picking Rome to host such an important summit, which will have an impact on the lives of millions of people. Thank you.
Grazie, Ministro Tajani. Thanks, Minister. And now we spoke about challenges and achievements. Let's see this small video just to see where we were at. These are key messages.
In the Eternal City, change is in the air. 2 years after the UN pre-summit, Rome is hosting the United Nations Food Systems Summit +2. In a timeless setting, world leaders, farmers, women, indigenous peoples, experts, activists, and youth gather to accelerate change and discuss healthy, sustainable, and inclusive food systems. Every day, billions of people face challenges in meeting their most basic need: food. Resilient harvests, smart agriculture, inclusive feeding, conscious consumption, accessible and informed nutrition. From our daily actions against food waste to global policies for healthy, equitable, and conscious diets, we can all contribute to a positive change. The United Nations Food System Summit +2 calls for strengthened support, including finance and increased ambition to shift to a food systems transformation with inclusive initiatives that are already bringing significant changes in a sector where all public, private, and community actors, including indigenous peoples, young people, and women, have a key role in shaping the future of global food systems. We feed our planet. We feed our future. In Rome, from the 24th to the 26th of July, Italy hosts the United Nations Food System Summit +2, a step towards global change.
Let's thank Rai, who's the media partner for all this, and UN is playing a key role in this. And so for me, it's an honor and a pleasure to ask the Secretary General of the United States to join, sorry, it's a wish, I don't know, of United Nations, please, to join me on stage. You see, even better. Thank you, Secretary.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank first of all the government of Italy for hosting this important event with the traditional and wonderful Italian hospitality. This is a gathering about food systems, but it is essentially about people in need and the need to fulfill the most basic of human rights, the right to food. In a world of plenty, it is outrageous that people continue to suffer and die from hunger. The Food System Summit 2 years ago helped shine a spotlight on a core truth. Global food systems are broken and billions of people are paying the price. More than 780 million people are going hungry, while nearly 1/3 of all food produced is lost or wasted. More than 3 billion cannot afford healthy diets, and 2 billion are overweight or obese. 462 million are underweight. And without access to financing and debt relief, developing countries are struggling to invest in food systems that can reach all people with the nutrition they need to live healthy lives. Meanwhile, unsustainable food production, packaging and consumption are feeding the climate crisis, generating 1/3 of all greenhouse gas emissions, using 70% of the world's fresh water, and driving biodiversity loss on an epic scale. Many communities are one shock away from plummeting into food insecurity or even famine. And the dire picture has grown bleaker with the Russian Federation termination of the Black Sea Initiative that enabled the safe export of more than 32 million metric tons of food or more on more than 1,000 vessels from Ukrainian ports. The initiative, together with our Memorandum of Understanding with the Russian Federation to facilitate Russian food and fertilizer exports, have been lifelines for global food security and global price stability. Food prices dropped by 23% from their highs last year. With the termination of the Black Sea Initiative, the most vulnerable will pay the highest price, as when food prices rise, everybody pays for it. We are already seeing the negative effect on global wheat and corn prices, which hurts everyone. But this is especially devastating for vulnerable countries struggling to feed their people. As food prices rise, the hopes of developing countries fall. The Russian Federation and Ukraine are both essential to global food security. They have historically accounted for roughly 30% of global wheat and barley exports, a fifth of all maize, and more than half of all sunflower oil. For my part, I remain committed to facilitating the unimpeded access to global markets for food products and fertilizers from both Ukraine and the Russian Federation, and to deliver the food security that every person deserves. And I call on the Russian Federation to return to the implementation of the Black Sea Initiative in line with my latest proposal. And I urge the global community to stand united for effective solutions in this essential effort. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, broken food systems are not inevitable. They are the result of choices we have made, and there is more than enough food in the world to go around. More than enough money to fund efficient and sustainable food systems to feed the world, while supporting decent work for those who grow the food we eat. And more than enough agricultural innovations and technology that can place healthy food within reach of every person. The good news is that countries are heeding the alarm we sounded in 2021 when I convened the first Food Systems Summit. Over 100 countries have submitted voluntary progress reports on food systems transformation. Countries are taking decisive steps to reflect this priority in national and subnational laws, policies and programming. We are seeing more data being generated to shape policies, programs and investments. And we are seeing more partnerships among governments, businesses, civil society and UN agencies, including through the UN Food Systems Coordination Hub. But rescuing the Sustainable Development Goals means going much further, and time is running out. We need urgent action in three key areas. First, a massive investment in sustainable, equitable, healthy and resilient food systems. It is no surprise that chronic hunger is increasing in those regions with the weakest and most underfunded food systems. Western Asia, the Caribbean, and across all regions in Africa. The State of Food Security and Nutrition report, released 2 weeks ago, also found that 1 in 5 people in Africa is going hungry, more than twice the global average. Starving food systems of investment means, quite literally, starving people. I urge governments to respond to our call for an SDG stimulus to scale up affordable long-term finance for all countries in need by at least $500 billion a year. This will help countries make meaningful progress towards Sustainable Development Goal 2 to achieve zero hunger and build systems that can ensure people have access to affordable, nutritious food wherever they live. And we also need greater investments in adaptation to resilient food, health, water, sanitation and agricultural systems that can withstand shocks as well as early warning systems. And I call on governments to support the food import facility proposed by the Global Crisis Response Group on Food, Energy and Finance to expand food accessibility for at least 50 countries facing acute food insecurity and the food stockholding mechanism for least developed countries. Second, governments and businesses must work together to build systems that put people over profit. I call on governments and the food, agriculture, transportation and retail industries to explore new ways to lower the cost and increase the geographic availability of fresh, healthy food for all people. This also means keep food markets open and removing trade barriers and export restrictions. And it means leveraging science and technology to improve the efficiency and reach of food systems. We must also boost support for the women and men around the world who bring food system to life, from farmers and food workers to those who transport food to markets. The World Bank estimates that food systems represent about 10% of the global economy. We must continue finding ways to support the people who drive this prosperity.
Third, we need food systems that can help end the senseless war on our planet. Food systems transformation is fundamental to reducing carbon emissions and limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Transformation needs new sustainable food systems that can reduce the carbon footprint of food processing, packaging, and transportation. It means harnessing new technologies to reduce the unsustainable use of land, water, and other resources in food production and agriculture sectors. It means demanding governments and businesses take stronger and faster action to tackle the climate crisis and to deliver environmental and climate justice. And it means, finally, that all countries commit to reaching net zero emissions, developed countries by 2040 and emerging economies by 2050. Food systems and all the other systems that support it, including transportation, must contribute to this great global effort.
Excellencies, transforming food systems requires all hands on deck. Since day one, the spirit of collaboration has shown through your efforts. From the national dialogues that brought together governments, businesses, communities and civil society in search of solutions, to the establishment of the UN Food Systems Coordination Hub, bringing together all food system partners to end the fragmentation that slows our progress, to the 155 national conveners on the front line of countries' transformation efforts, to the leaders joining us today and everyone in this room and following online. Together, let's keep pushing for change. Let's keep building each other to account and learning from one another. Let's transform food systems for the future and ensure that every person in every community and country has access to the safe and nutritious food they need and deserve. And let's not forget that for developing countries to be able to achieve these goals, it is absolutely essential to massively scale up debt relief and to guarantee long-term investment for those countries to be able to overcome the asphyxia in which they are presently suffering. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's thank the Secretary General of the United Nations, Антоніо Гутьєрреш, for what he just told us. It's a real call to action. And let me remind you that the report of the Secretary General, Making Food Systems Work for People and the Planet, is available on the website of the UN Food Systems Coordination Hub. And so let's move now to the opening speech of our day with the Prime Minister of Italy, Giorgia Meloni. Welcome on stage.
Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I am glad to welcome all you in Rome at the second UN Food Systems Summit. I am very pleased to see such a large participation at the highest level. I'm particularly proud that this summit takes place in Rome, where we host the Food and Agriculture Organization, the World Food Programme, and the International Fund for Agriculture Development. I would like to thank Secretary General Gutierrez for deciding to celebrate this appointment here in the Eternal City, and also the General Director for hosting us. For 3 days, Rome will become the food security capital of the world. a choice that pays tribute to Italy's traditional commitment to this crucial issue. Food security has always been, indeed, one of the strategic guidelines of our foreign policy and a priority area of Italian development cooperation. And it has become one of the major challenges of our time in this completely interconnected world. The pandemic has shaken the foundations of international trade and mobility and exposed the deep weakness of global supply chains and globalization. As we work to overcome the impact of the pandemic and rebuild global trade flows, Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine disrupted global energy prices and helped unleash waves of inflation around the world at the expense of the most vulnerable nations, especially in the global south. The war has aggravated old and new problems, among them food insecurity in many African nations, already tested by long periods of drought and difficult climatic conditions, which are now weaker and easier prey of terrorism and fundamentalism. The war has impacted heavily on grain distribution across the globe, and Russia's pull-out from the Black Sea Grain Initiative is further worsening the global food security crisis. We will continue to support all efforts towards the resumption of this key initiative and are urging Russia to reconsider its decision. As a result, the plight of malnutrition is spreading. Nearly 120 million people have pushed into extreme poverty, bringing the total figure to 730 million. Almost 600 million people will be chronically undernourished in 2030. And this situation has an impact on our lives, on each and every one. That's why yesterday Italy has hosted also a conference about migration and development and launched a new international initiative to support political stability and foster social and economic development while addressing the root causes of migration and fighting human trafficking and the smuggling of migrants. Our goal is to ensure that each and every one enjoy the right not to be forced to emigrate, the chance to live in peace and with dignity in one's own nation. These are not my words, but those of Pope Francis, who called on the international community to codify this right. Food security is key in this journey to ensure development and economic growth and give people the opportunity to live in their own land. This is also the true meaning of food sovereignty, the right of a people to choose their own production model and food system. Moreover, a stronger relationship between land, people and labor delivers more quality food and sustainable production chains. I often refer to the issue of the global south and of Africa in particular, not only because Italy is one of the continent's closest neighbors, but above all because Africa is not a poor continent. On the contrary, it is full of resources. It holds half of the world's mineral resources, among them rare earths. Almost 50% of its land is arable, giving it the potential to feed all its population. The spirit of the Mattei Plan for Africa stems from these facts. We need to establish a non-predatory cooperation model, aiming to shorten value chains and to partner with the African nations to enable them to live well off their own resources. With the same approach, we need to cooperate with all nations around the globe to support them in creating their own prosperity. The prosperity of our neighbors is our prosperity. That is why we're here today. And I expect that we all agree on concrete actions. For this reason, I believe it is important to invest in research and technology to innovate our food systems, to enhance sustainability, to improve the quality and quantity of the productions. Italy will invest in Agritech, a strategic research center in Naples, to develop new technologies starting from the aerospace sector and their application in agriculture. I believe that innovation must work together with our identity and tradition. Our nation can share its extraordinary heritage to address the double burden of malnutrition, the coexistence of undernutrition and overweight, which have a huge impact on our national health systems. While millions of people live in food insecurity, more than 3 billion people in the world are unable to afford a healthy diet. The principle of the Mediterranean diet might offer a solution because it is not expensive, is based on seasonal local raw materials, respecting the territory and its biodiversity. The principles of the Mediterranean diet do not belong to the Mediterranean basin. They belong to the world. I believe that only financing at scale can bring about the transformative changes of our food systems. Cooperation with all the international financial institutions is a key element for the implementation of more agri-feedstock projects. The Italian Climate Fund, with an annual budget of 840 million euros, can foster sustainable transformation of food systems in developing nations. I believe in international cooperation. At the G20 ministerial meeting in 2021 under Italian presidency, we signed the Matera Declaration, calling upon the international community to ensure adequate nutrition for all and set up resilient food chains. But food security will also be high on the agenda of our G7 presidency in the next year. Dear Secretary General, dear colleagues, we are in Rome, in the UN hub that we are honored to host. And here in Rome, we have the chance to start a new journey towards global food security. A journey inspired to the future, to innovation and to new technologies, with our roots firmly planted in our history and identity. Cicero, one of the most important philosophers of ancient Rome, gave us a great lesson. He said, "Of all the arts from which we derive some profit, none is better than agriculture, none more profitable, none sweeter, none more worthy of a man and of a free man." You can count on the commitment of Italy. Thank you, and I wish you a productive summit.
Thanks. Thank you, Prime Minister, and thanks for reminding us the figures of the challenge we're facing here. But obviously, it's such a complex, key issue that has different perspectives and different approaches. So let me welcome on stage the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed Ali, to give us his own perspective on this. Prime Minister, the stage is yours.
Your Excellency, Giorgia Meloni, Prime Minister of the Republic of Italy, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Excellency Антоніо Гутьєрреш, Secretary General of the United Nations, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. From the outset, allow me to appreciate our host, Prime Minister Giorgia Mелони, for the warm welcome and hospitality afforded to us since our arrival. Excellencies, food is essential to the survival of well-being of more than 8 billion people that make up our global community. We find existence, nourishment, and enjoyment in food. Food is life. Yet, in a world of great disparities, hundreds of millions of people worldwide are undernourished and malnourished in some part of the world. On the other hand, we witness oversupply and wastage of food in some other part of the world. Climate change and environmental shocks are challenging biodiversity and destroying harvests. Even here in Italy, we saw the destruction it caused in the northern grape-producing regions. These trials are further complicated by the lingering impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, man-made and natural disasters, and growing population. As we convene today in this beautiful and historic city of Rome, we must not only review commitments to action made in the 2021 Stocktaking Summit, but we must work to make the world's poorest people less exposed to these major shocks by strengthening local and regional food systems. Especially as we strive to meet food security targets set in the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the African continent has immense potential for agriculture. We are endowed with arable land available for cultivation and growing agricultural and food system. In Ethiopia, agricultural productivity and modernization is our top development priority. Various initiatives have been launched and significant gains have been made thus far. Yet, many challenges remain. Production and productivity are affected by limited access to appropriate inputs, including fertilizers, seeds, and agricultural technologies. Moreover, prices for nutrient-dense foods have increased significantly over time, making healthier diets unaffordable for the majority. Soil erosion, land degradation, and deforestation over decades have also affected agriculture and food systems. However, in Ethiopia has demonstrated unwavering political commitment to transform the food system in line with our national and international commitments. Accordingly, we produced a food system transformation roadmap and designed a related governance program. Excellencies, beyond policies and strategies, we have been actively implementing numerous initiatives with overarching goals of enhancing agricultural resilience, ensuring food self-sufficiency, and combating climate change. Various national initiatives have been launched in the last 4 years that are currently bearing fruit. Allow me to briefly share some of them. First, we are actively working on tackling the adverse effects of climate change. 4 years ago, we launched the Green Legacy Initiative with the aim of planting 50 billion seedlings across the country by 2026. By the end of this year's planting season, we will have achieved over 32 billion seedlings, and we will meet our target within the remaining period. On July 10th of this month alone, more than 33.5 million people went out to plant close to 567 million seedlings within a 12-hour duration. This has been a positive national experience. The Green Legacy Initiative plays a vital role in restoring Ethiopia's forests and supporting food self-sufficiency. 1 in every 50 seedlings are fruit-bearing ones, such as avocados, mangoes, apples, and papayas. Second, we introduced off-season irrigated wheat programs, which allowed us to move from a deficit in our wheat demand to surplus, with a production increased of 300%. This is helping us not only achieve our domestic wheat demand, but also enabling exports. Third, we are providing school meals to millions of primary school children across the country. We rolled out this national school feeding program in the last 3 years. While such programs are prevalent in most developed nations, their implementation remains limited in low and middle-income countries where the need is greater. Fourth, we are actively promoting urban agriculture in urban areas by integrating agricultural practices into urban settings. Individuals and communities gain access to fresh, nutritious produce while also generating additional source of income. Fifth, we are enhancing the productivity and production of dairy, eggs, chicken meat, honey, and related high products at household level. Through this recently launched program called Yelema Turufat, loosely translated as Bounty of the Basket, we aim to expedite efforts towards achieving food self-sufficiency and ensuring nutritional adequacy. Six, we are enhancing efficiency and productivity in the livestock subsector while reducing enteric emissions. Our livestock sector is vulnerable to climate change and particularly drought. In response, we implemented a range of initiatives to foster sustainable livestock productivity and production while diversifying the source of protein. Notable achievements in this regard is a considerable increase in production of milk by 70% and eggs production by 30%. These initiatives by no means define the extent of our efforts, yet they are key in contributing to building and strengthening the food system. My government is fully dedicated to the development of climate-resilient, regenerative agriculture and the transformation of the food system. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I would like to draw your attention to some factors that will transform our food systems into equitable and sustainable ones. A new and robust agricultural finance model is essential for food security, job creation, and economic growth. This new model should be inclusive to respond to the demands of farmers, particularly in developing countries. We need to enhance access to markets and effective linkage between agriculture producers, community markets, and commercial value chains. Digital financial services focusing on youth and women and agricultural insurances should be the main features of a new financing model to boost agricultural production. We must mobilize and establish resources to finance government-led initiatives that effectively address challenges of food security, malnutrition, and the ever-increasing impacts of climate change. I call upon all partners and stakeholders to extend support to Ethiopia and the continent at large in our collective endeavors to achieve food security and transform our food systems. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Thanks for giving us these good examples. And let me tell you that in a few moments we will discuss the financial aspect of this with a panel. So let's move to a different perspective.
In the name of Allah, the Most Merciful. Italian Prime Minister, Mr. Secretary General, Honorable Heads of State and Government, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, and a very good afternoon. I sincerely thank the UN Secretary-General for inviting me to this summit. I commend the Italian government and the UN Food Systems Coordination Hub for organizing this stock-taking moment. Ladies and gentlemen, our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, wished to see overall development of farming and farmers in the golden Bengal of his dreams. Following independence in 1971, Bangabandhu embarked on building the country with a meager food stock of 0.4 million tons. In a short span of time, he took initiatives to introduce advanced farming methods, seeds, irrigation, and other agricultural inputs. Moreover, he waived land tax for ownership up to 15.5 acres. He established the Krishi Bank to provide necessary financing for agriculture. In 1973, he confirmed Bangladesh's entry into the Food and Agriculture Organization. Bangladesh Constitution, framed under his leadership, committed to uphold all citizens' fundamental right to adequate, nutritious food. Ladies and gentlemen, following Bangabandhu's example, our government, upon election in 1996, identified increased agricultural production for food security as the foremost priority. At that time, food shortage in the country amounted to about 4 million metric tons. Over the next 5 years, we turned the country self-reliant in food grain production. I was awarded FAO's Ceres Medal in recognition of our fight against hunger. Regrettably, however, our government had to start our second elected term in 2009 with a food deficit of 2.6 million metric tons. We launched multi-pronged initiatives, including subsidies for agricultural mechanization, opening bank accounts for farmers at Taka 10 only, and setting up a well-regulated fertilizer distribution system. As a result, we not only achieved food autarky, but also turned into a food surplus country by 2013. Ladies and gentlemen, according to FAO reports, Bangladesh ranks among the world's top 10 food-producing countries. In 2008-9 fiscal year, we produced 32.9 million metric tons of food grains, which increased to 49.4 million metric tons in 2022-23. During 2008-9 to 2020-21, vegetable production in the country grew by 5% every year. while fruit production increased by more than 11%. Bangladesh now ranks third in rice and fish, second in jute, third in vegetable, and sixth in potato production in the world. Agriculture sector contributes 11.66% to Bangladesh's GDP, with around 46% of our workforce employed in the sector. Our fisheries sector accounts for 2.43% of GDP and livestock 1.90%. Ladies and gentlemen, our government attaches the highest importance to agricultural research and innovation. Currently, there are 8 agricultural universities in the public sector. In the last 14 years, 690 improved and high-yielding crop varieties have been developed. Our scientists have invented salinity-tolerant rice varieties and continue to work on drought and submergence-tolerant varieties. The world's first zinc-rich Breedhan 62, along with antioxidant, diabetic, and provitamin rice varieties have been innovated. Genome sequences have been discovered for Deshi and Tosha jute varieties, as well as for the fungi affecting over 500 plants. Bangabandhu Research Chair has been established at the Global Institute for Food Security under University of Saskatchewan, Canada. Between 2010 and 2022, we distributed approximately 81,000 machineries to modernize our agriculture and make it profitable. A total of $9.5 billion has been provided as development assistance for fertilizer, power, and irrigation. In 2022-23 fiscal year, $2.47 billion has been allocated as part of development funding in the wake of fertilizer price hike in the international market. Ladies and gentlemen, the global COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine have severely disrupted food grain production and supply chain across the world. Our government provided $467 million as stimulus to agriculture during the pandemic. I have urged all our people to bring every inch of land under cultivation. I would like to see that we are able to produce ourselves the food we need. To that end, vegetable nutrition gardens have been developed in every union of the country. About 147,000 farmers and their families are the direct beneficiaries of this program. Since 2016, we have been providing 30 kg rice every month to 5 million families under a food security program for poor rural communities. Till last year, rice was provided at Taka 10 per kg. Now, it is being given at Taka 15. Moreover, under open market sale or OMS program for all, rice is being sold at Taka 30 per kg and flour at Taka 24 per kg. Each individual can purchase maximum 5 kg rice and 5 kg flour. From this July, 5 kg OMS rice along with sugar, lentils and edible oil are being distributed to 10 million families across the country under TCB. Ladies and gentlemen, since introducing the National School Meal Policy in 2019, we have been providing nutritious meals to nearly 3 million school-going children in 104 poverty-prone sub-districts across the country. This morning, we have officially joined the Global School Meal Coalition. In 2013, we enacted the Food Safety Act. In 2015, we established the Bangladesh Food Safety Authority. Currently, our government has a storage capacity up to 2.159 million metric tons of food grains. The country's food grain stock has increased to over 1.6 million metric ton from 1 million metric ton in 2007. Around 500,000 family silos have been distributed in 63 sub-districts under 19 disaster-prone districts across the country. Ladies and gentlemen, our agriculture sector has already proven its climate adaptation capacity to a great extent. Our traditional floating agricultural practice in water-submerged areas was recognized by FAO in 2015 as a global heritage in agriculture. We are repurposing our agricultural production system in alignment with agroecological zones. We have undertaken multiple steps, including biofertilizer production, crop diversification, innovating stress-tolerant varieties, safeguarding marine conservation areas and breeding grounds, rainwater harvesting, and creating mangrove forests. Our farmers are already showing prudence in adopting modern farming methods, including synchronization, and using chemical fertilizers and pesticides in a health and environment-friendly manner. Our youth is responding to our call to take up farming towards implementing smart agriculture. With a view to increasing agricultural and food experts, we are following agricultural good practices, hygiene practices, and good manufacturing practices from production to shipment. Additionally, we are paying attention to ensuring local product quality by setting up accreditation labs of international standard. We have made arrangements for special incentives to agro-processing. Furthermore, we have expressed interest in using our agricultural innovation and expertise in Africa and other parts of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, globally, 690 million people continue to suffer from undernourishment. Nearly 2 billion people lack food security, and approximately 3 billion people do not have access to balanced diet. The food, fertilizer, energy, and financial crisis created due to the ongoing Ukraine war and sanctions, counter-sanctions have further deepened the hunger and malnutrition situation around the world. However, the cost of agricultural and food products is not the only constraint for access to nutritious food. The solution lies in promoting inclusive and sustainable food transformation for all. Against this backdrop, I would like to make 5 recommendations for a sustainable, secure, and nutritious global food system. First, to encourage multilateral development banks and private entrepreneurs to invest in modern agriculture, it is required to provide financial incentives and policy support at the international level. Second, alongside keeping the UN Secretary-General's Black Sea grain deal alive, it is critical to make concerted efforts in removing any trade barriers, including lifting restrictions on food and fertilizer exports. Third, in addition to setting up global and regional food bank to address emergency situations, the international community should come forward to support developing countries in transforming their food production systems to cope with climate change effects. Fourth, to keep pace with the fourth industrial revolution, access to nanotechnology, bioinformatics, and advanced agricultural technologies needs to be opened up for all in the interest of agricultural education and research. Fifth, in order to prevent food waste of almost 1/3 of global production every year, it is crucial to build a broad-based social movement involving the youth. I conclude on an optimistic note that we would be able to achieve sustainable food security worldwide by collectively adopting and implementing an appropriate plan of action. I thank you all. and my special... Jai Bangla, Jai Bangabandhu, may Bangladesh live forever.
Of Bangladesh gives us the idea that really things can change. So let's move to a different perspective, and I will welcome the Prime Minister of Samoa, who's also the chair of the Alliance of Small Island States, Fiame Naomi Matafa. And let me also acknowledge the fact that there are so many female prime ministers on this stage, and this is also about change. So welcome her with a good round of applause. Please, Prime Minister, the floor is yours.
Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, Secretary General Guterres, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I bring a message of trepidation on behalf of 65 million persons in the small island developing states across our world. But I also bring a missive of hope. SIDS find themselves on a precipice. Extreme events rage on our shores. In some places, drought hardens our land and dries up our rivers. Our economies struggle against the burgeoning food and energy prices. The debt and disaster cycle forces the hands of SIDS leaders. The SIDS are slipping from our grasp, and the ebb and flow of our development seems commonplace. Intuitively, we know that decisions that place people over planet or planet over people are not real solutions. They are instead temporary fixes for long entrenched challenges that require a holistic approach. The small islands of this world are some of the most biodiverse. Our people have enjoyed the bounty of the land and the sea for generations. From the vibrant aquamarine lagoons to the lush greenery of our shores, our islands hold a treasure trove of life that is both awe-inspiring and crucial for our planet's ecological balance. As stewards of 70% of the world's oceans, SIDS have actively advocated at the international level for more commitments that conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources. However, today we find ourselves in a food and health crisis. Arguably, we didn't find ourselves here overnight. Unlike many of our other struggles, this crisis has much to do with our choices, as it has to do with who we are as small islands. Our growing populations and economies have shifted our mindsets. We believe the more disposable income somehow equates to greater imports of foreign foods. In the Caribbean and Pacific, we import on average over 60% of our foods, and over half of us are importing up to 80%. In doing so, we import predominantly calorie-dense, processed, and ultra-processed foods. We have therefore undergone a nutrition transition. Our people struggle with NCDs and obesity, and our health systems are under immense strain dealing with this epidemic. We also import much of our dietary staples, including wheat, corn, meat, and dairy. So we are at the mercy of global food prices. As price takers with high transport costs, every upturn balloons in SIDS. As a result, we have very little food security. Coupled with this, we're all too certain impacts of climate change. More intense disasters, land degradation, and the exploitation of our ocean's resources. The result is a crisis of limitless proportions. These planetary changes leave no middle ground. Our land is either too wet or too dry, both unsuitable for agriculture. Meanwhile, our waters are being exploited unsustainably, while rising temperatures are killing existing marine life. More recent studies have emphasized the negative relationship between the degree of structural vulnerability of countries and their progress towards achieving SDG 2. This implies that countries with a higher degree of vulnerability, we SIDS, face more difficulties to end hunger and achieve food security and improved nutrition. These challenges have been at the forefront of our minds since 1994. In each iteration of our decadal development plans, we have reaffirmed the rights of SIDS to lead healthy lives, ensure the sustainable use of our resources, and accelerate resilience and reform. The 2017 GAP report sought to advance much of this thinking, as did the midterm review of the Samoa pathway. Restatements without foreseeable results. As we look towards our fourth International Conference on SIDS in 2024, we must pivot from contemporary to transformational approaches. We cannot succeed at ensuring the balance between people and the planet until we recognize that one cannot exist without the other. SIDS know this. We live this. The food systems approach sits well within the integrated approaches we have always championed. Our small and unique ecosystems ensure that we are inherently closer and more attuned to our food systems and the intricate linkages between what we eat and use and the legacies for future generations. And still, the implementation of our development plans based on our principled approaches remains low. This is our point of departure today and into the next year. We need to be able to grow what we eat and eat what we grow. But that simple construct is so far-reaching and presupposes that we can adequately support the actions that lead to the right outcome. Our land and oceans must be viable. SIDS can do its part, but much of our challenge lies with the users and extractors far beyond our shores. It is not too late to protect what we have. All it requires is determination and tenacity. Climate action must be at the forefront of all our endeavors. Without the credible action of the international community, SIDS face a future with land underwater and no usable ocean. Our health systems are at a breaking point. Too many of our citizens are living with preventable diseases. Our once nutrient-rich diets are now replaced by cheap and non-nutrition foods. Our agriculture industries need a reboot. Our small-scale and smallholder farms must be strengthened. For far too long, we have kept to the rhetoric. The world has changed, and so must we, in an adaptive manner. Our farmers need more climate-resilient infrastructure, better inputs, and greater national support to ensure their viability. We need to access more environmentally friendly technology to support our local food production. The women that underpin much of our food industry similarly require very targeted assistance to overcome the persistent challenges that they face. The 2022 Pacific SIDS Solution Forum made a resounding call for increased local production and import substitution as a catalytic measure for advancing the food systems transformation agenda. The COVID-19 pandemic was a stark reminder of how fragile and interconnected we are, and the absolute necessity of strengthening our adaptive capacity. We employed a series of social safety nets across SIDS, but these were just barely enough to support our people. Our national incomes were at the brink of collapse, and many SIDS leaders were forced to make unenviable but bold choices, such as the Pacific, opting to prioritize the health of their populations over economic recovery. The pandemic re-emphasized the position of many SIDS, limited options in the face of multiple and layered crises. We must therefore tailor international financial mechanisms in addressing the vulnerabilities faced by SIDS and to enhance and strengthen the availability and quality of data. The truth is, without integrated consideration and collective undertaking, vulnerable countries will not know resilient development. Coordination of efforts at the local, regional, and global levels remain key. Therefore, the food systems approach is much more than improved agriculture or nutritionally better diets. It takes an overarching methodology that links sufficiency, fairness, and sustainability with our people and our planet at the center. The approach must be country-tailored in order to advance the food systems transformation agenda. It is the North Star of the United Nations. It is humanity in a calamitous world. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister.